We can see your screen.
Okay, great. Give me just a second here. Okay, so great. So hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon. Thank you for the invitation. I love Leah, and I love working with her, so it's a great opportunity to do this. And besides, it's raining, and what else have we got to do than talk about assessment this afternoon? So I hope you all survived the rain and the storms this morning and didn't get too many tornado warnings and that kind of thing. We had a few in our service area. But I'm going to jump right in. So today, Leah asked me to talk a little bit about assessment. And so we're going to focus on the plan for improvement, which is really one of the last steps in the assessment cycle of closing the loop. So you all have identified desired levels of performance on your student learning outcomes or your program outcomes. You've assessed those through multiple measures, I hope, and you've collected and analyzed your data. And we just want to talk about some ways to plan for improvement. And so just to give you a little background, this Section 8 of the new revised SAC-COC standards on student achievement now address assessment, and specifically Standard 8.2. The institution identifies expected outcomes, assesses the extent to which it achieves these outcomes, and provides evidence of seeking improvement based on analysis of the results in the areas below. Student learning outcomes for each of its educational programs, not just some of them, but each of them. Student learning outcomes for collegiate level general education competencies of its undergraduate degree programs, and academic and student support services that support student success. So don't feel like you've been picked on. Everybody's got to set some or show some evidence of seeking improvement. Now, the key words there are seeking improvement based on the analysis of the results. So, some actions that, so improvement actions should do the following. They should be actions taken to improve or maintain a desired outcome. So what do we want to do we might have reached our outcome, our desired level of performance, but what do we want to do to continue to move that needle forward and to continue to improve student performance or program outcomes, or at least to maintain the desired outcome. I don't know about at OCtech, but things tend to fluctuate at Piedmont, and so it's really difficult to try to maintain a positive direction on some items with the fluctuation that goes on. And we all realize that these improvement actions may not have solely influenced improvement, but we take them so that we can improve, so that we have a chance to improve. So kind of keep that in mind too. You don't have to be able to contribute the success or the improvement to that outcome, in isolation. But hopefully it is one of the things that helped you to continue in a positive direction or continue to improve. And so improvement actions are an opportunity to focus on the design and improvement of educational experiences to enhance student learning and support student learning outcomes for its educational programs. And that's exactly what SAC-COC wants them to do, just to enhance student learning and support student learning outcomes for its educational programs. So in order to come up with good improvement actions, there needs to be some discussion and reflection. So you really want to start by consulting your curriculum mapping. Where is it that you're assessing this outcome? And if it's in an early course and students didn't achieve your desired level of performance, then what have you done between that assessment measure and the one you assessed this year to try to influence that in a positive direction? You may have had to go back and do some remediation. You may have had to go talk to the arts and science faculty. Perhaps it was in the area of general education. And so you want to go back and talk to them and see what kind of rubrics they might use, or what kind of emphasis they put on that general education outcome, so that you have an understanding of where students were before they came to you and where you need them to be by the time they leave you. Also, it's a great idea to take your assessment plans and your assessment results to your program advisory committee and get their input. Sometimes they can provide you with the best ideas for improvement actions based on what they've seen in some program graduates that they've hired. So it's just a really great opportunity. Improvement actions are just a really great opportunity to have some discussion and some reflection about student learning and about your program and where you want your students and the program to go moving forward. So these improvement actions need to connect to the outcome being assessed. They need to follow that analysis of assessment results. And they should provide evidence then, if they've done those two things, they should provide evidence of your seeking to improve student learning in your program. And hopefully over time, maybe not immediately, but hopefully over time, you're going to see some improved student performance or learning, because you've got an investment in it when you start that discussion and that reflection about these assessment reports, and they aren't just done by, say, the program administrator, but going back and taking the time to have a quick departmental meeting and talk about it, or a quick email to say, hey, here's where our results were. What do you guys think about this? And how can we improve this going forward? Or to celebrate. A lot of times you meet that desired level of performance and you're just so glad you stop there. But it's a wonderful opportunity to go back to your faculty and say, hey, look how wonderful these students performed, and what can we do to continue this success going forward? So I've listed some improvement actions that you could take. And I want to go over each one of these just to kind of get your thoughts going this afternoon. And then I want to get you to come up and you to help me come up with some improvement actions based on some actual desired outcomes and data analysis. So here are just some that you can use, but hopefully you can come up with some that are even better. So you may want to increase the desired level of performance. Sometimes we start out with 75, 70, 80, because it's the first time we've assessed this skill, or the first time we've used a particular course to assess this outcome, this student learning outcome. And we just aren't real sure how well they're going to do with it. Maybe it's a new assessment item that you're using and you just aren't sure how the students are going to do. Well, there's nothing wrong with, if you meet that desired level of performance, and maybe you even meet it twice, that you raise it the third year to something else. Increase that desired level of performance, maybe from 80 to 85. You've done this a while, and now you're better at it. So give yourself a stretch goal. Maybe you want to upgrade equipment. So I know, in electronics, things have moved from analog to digital. So maybe there's some digital type equipment. And that's probably true of a lot of programs where the equipment has changed. And so you're going to upgrade a piece of equipment so that you can start assessing students' ability to use that equipment rather than, maybe a more manual piece of equipment. Maybe you're going to go from a manual lathe to some, type of computer-controlled cutting instrument. Maybe you're just going to add additional practice. Maybe the students just need more practice with that skill in order to be able to perform it well. Maybe you're going to open a lab for student practice or repetition. Students have class, they maybe have an assigned lab, but maybe that's not enough time for them to go back and practice things that they're going to have to individually demonstrate. So you might have an open lab in the afternoon where students can come back and work on something where they are a little weak. Maybe you're going to add some additional handouts to D2L or whatever your learning management system is there at Orangeburg. You know, additional handouts and for the weaker students sometimes can, you know, really make a difference in their learning. And especially if it addresses a different learning modality than those maybe you use during the lecture period. Perhaps you're going to show some videos. For the visual learner, those videos are important and they'll help them to, you know, master a series of steps, or maybe they're auditory and having the videos and being able to listen to some additional lecture or some additional information is helpful. Perhaps you're going to select a new textbook. The textbook you're currently using could be weak in an outcome, and you found one that's much better and it's such an important outcome that you want to switch textbooks. I think that would be a great improvement action to consider. Perhaps you're going to revise the course or the syllabus. Maybe it's just outdated, and so you're going to start by revising that. Or maybe the order is not working and you've decided that if you cover the topics in a different order, the students would perform better. So you're going to revise that syllabus and implement that new order or course outline. And grading rubrics. I don't know if you've ever started or created a grading rubric, but those things are complicated and usually they require some tweaking over time. You get better at what you want to look for. You want the student to understand what it is you're going to look for in that grading rubric. So that's another great thing to consider is just maybe the grading rubric needs tweaking a little bit. Also, adding a pretest to assess some prerequisite skills. So maybe you're in engineering and you've got some trigonometry that you need students to be able to understand. And you just want to find out how much they know about trigonometry first before you start adding the engineering applications to that knowledge. So a pretest, adding a pretest on prerequisite skills might be helpful as an improvement action. Maybe your professional development, maybe your adjunct needs some professional development. I was reviewing our assessment reports, which were due last month, and our machine tool guys said they retrained their adjunct on using a manual lathe. So that was professional development for them. So maybe that's what's needed. So if you got that upgraded equipment, or maybe you got to go in there and train the adjunct. Our QEP is on advising, and we realized that, so one of the courses, the healthcare careers course, students are asked to tell us what they know about their role as an advisee in that course. And we realized some of the adjunct who were teaching the course weren't advisors and did not have any training on advising or what our expectations were for students. So we've decided, hey, we're going to bring those adjunct in and talk about advising and what our expectations are for both advisors and for advisees with them, so that more students can answer those questions successfully in that course. And maybe you want to purchase some new software. We're always wanting new gadgets, equipment, software, things that help our students to learn. So maybe there's some new software that you're going to purchase. Maybe it's accounting software to improve student performance in Accounting 101. And then just ordinary things that we probably do anyway, whether we had assessed and talked about the assessment results, but revise the quiz or the test. Maybe you realize that 20% or 30% of a class missed a certain question or a certain type of concept, and maybe there's a better way to ask that question or to present that information on a quiz or a test. So you're going to revise that. And then my final suggestion might be that you bring in a guest speaker. Sometimes we can tell students how important work ethic skills are, or how important it is to master good procedures in healthcare, But having somebody who's been there, done that, maybe even made a mistake on the job is really helpful to students to kind of, help them hone in on how important a skill might be in the workplace. So these are just some ideas, and let's jump into some actual assessments and see if you can help me come up with some ideas for some improvement actions. Before we do that, does anybody have any questions? Leah, how's my time doing? Am I okay? About 15 minutes? Okay.
Yeah, you've got about 15 minutes.
All right, that should be perfect for a few examples here.
Donna, I will say I actually made you the host because I wasn't sure what tools you would need, and I couldn't get the host to work. There are a few people who'd like to come in. If you can click on participants and just let them write in.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, is that everybody? Seems like everybody get in? I think. Okay, looks like it. All right, good. So no questions, we'll keep going. Okay. All right, so here's your turn. I want you to suggest an appropriate improvement action for each conclusion here. All right, so here's the desired level of performance. This particular department wanted 80% or more of the 2019 fall and 2020 spring Accounting 101 students to correctly identify 7 out of 10 accounting terms on the Unit 1 test. Now, we don't know what student learning outcome this went with because I didn't give you that, but this was their desired level of performance. That the students in Accounting 101 from fall and spring correctly defined 7 of 10 accounting terms on the Unit 1 test. And let's assume for this test that they were matching, okay? Let's assume it was matching questions. So the results were 100% of the fall traditional lecture Accounting 101 students were able to define 7 of 10. 100% of the fall dual enrollment students were able to define 7 of the 10. Only 95% of the fall online Accounting 101 were able to do that. And 98% of the hybrid students were able to correctly define 7 of 10 terms. And let's assume for the purposes of this slide, since I'm out of room, that the spring results were similar. Sounds good, doesn't it? No improvement action needed. But we need to seek improvement. So what might you suggest that this department do to continue this level of success or to continue to improve the online and the hybrid student success? Anybody want to share an idea?
I think they would probably need to formulate a different test to challenge them a little bit more.
I think that's a great idea. So this might fall in upping that level of expected performance, right?
Yes.
Yeah, or choosing a different format. If it was matching, maybe they want to use multiple choice or short answer, or have the students give a free response. Anybody else have a different idea?
How about being able to show the understanding of these terms in context?
I think that would be wonderful. So maybe you give them a spreadsheet and they have to show you where these terms are on the spreadsheet or something, right? And what is that doing? Both of these are good suggestions. And what are they doing in terms of a hierarchy of learning?
Maybe helping the students to have a better understanding in the Accounting 101 of how to use their terms.
Good, good. So it's Bloom's taxonomy, isn't it? We're advancing from a knowledge level into an understanding level, and hopefully from there into an application level or a synthesis level. Great, good, good. So don't forget your Bloom's taxonomy when you're writing desired levels of performance or when you're thinking about your improvement actions. Where are you on blooms, and where by the time the student graduates do they need to be? Great. Any other ideas? Well, thank you for those two participants. If I were in the room with you, I would have brought you a surprise. So thank you so much for answering that question or participating this afternoon. Let's look at another example. Okay, so this one is a kind of gen ed. We got English 101 students who are scoring a 4 out of 5 on the grammar sub-score section of the English 101 essay grading rubric for the descriptive essay. So this is early in English 101. And we want 85% of the students to score a 4 out of 5 on the grammar sub-score section for this essay. Well, look at these results. 58% of the fall English 101 students scored a 4 out of 5. So we didn't reach our desired level of performance. What can we do? How can we improve? How can we seek improvement? And this could be, you know, a health science research paper.
Do we know what their level is to start with?
I'm sorry?
Do we know what their level already is when they start? Because one of the things we do is test their grammar English level before they go to English 101. Would these people already have this knowledge that they're supposed to?
Yeah, so we'll assume that they all scored high enough on the college placement test to place into English 101. Okay, so we know that about them. So I think you're on the right track. Maybe just take what you're thinking there and word it a little differently. What might we need to do before we assign this first essay in English 101?
Well, that would be one that pretty much would require a pre-test to see what you should expect when they do the essay.
Yeah, so I think a grammar pre-test of your English 101 students might be warranted here, especially since you only reached 58% scoring that 4 out of 5 on grammar. So implementing some kind of remediation or pre-test in grammar so that you can find out what elements of grammar the students might need additional practice on would be excellent. Thank you. Other ideas?
Maybe you can consider looking at the rubrics that may be outdated.
Yeah, they very well could be, couldn't they? Yeah, so the rubric might need to be examined and revised. Very good. Other ideas?
Make it a requirement for them to do a rough draft and submit it.
Yeah. So, you know, I think that's the hardest thing sometimes in an English course or any writing course is getting students to understand the need for revision, that we don't just turn in our first draft. So I think that would be an excellent idea, is teaching the students about the revision process through the submission of a rough draft. Great idea. And does it have to be just English 101? Wouldn't all of these suggestions work for any writing assignment across the curriculum?
Sure.
Yeah. So if it weren't English 101 and it was a writing assignment in another department, what might that department do to improve student performance on a writing assignment? Anybody?
You might encourage the students to peer edit.
Yes.
And self-reflection, so that will help them see exactly what their classmates are doing to improve their writing.
Yes, and so if you've never seen the type of writing your other classmates are doing, you have nothing to compare your writing to know whether it's on track or subpar or exemplary, right? So that peer editing sure provides that opportunity. Great idea. Good. Anybody else have an idea? You know, you might even do a quick grammar review and ask your best friend in the English department to come to your class and provide that, or ask your best friend in the English department if they might have some grammar handouts that you could upload, and encourage students to review those before tackling their essay too. Referring them to the writing center at Ohio State. Those are also good ideas. So good, great. All right, let's see what else we got here. All right, here's one, and I don't know if you can, if I can minimize that so you can see. All right, so this time we're in computers technology. So 80% of the students in CPT 257 for fall 2017 and spring 2018 who complete the Chapter 2 quiz, Installing Windows, will correctly answer 15 out of 20 questions, and 80% who complete the assessment for a Chapter 2 assignment will score 75% or above, using the scoring rubric to demonstrate the ability to install, configure, and upgrade a personal computer operating system. All right, so here's the results over here. I don't know if you can see this, but it says, according to the data, 81% of the students in CPT 257 for fall 2017 and spring 2018 correctly answered 15 out of 20 questions on the Chapter 2 quiz. All right, so I'm going to go back over there. It said they wanted 80% to correctly answer 15 out of 20 questions. So 81, pretty good. All right, and there's our breakdown. You can see that they have disaggregated the data by method of course delivery, and even included the late term online section. So that's good. All right, and then the bottom one, they had 98% of the students in CPT 257 for fall and spring correctly demonstrated the ability to install, configure, and upgrade personal computer operating systems. And you see that data also disaggregated there. And you can see that the online class was the only place where one student didn't meet that goal. So again, this is an example where students are performing well. What are we going to do to either maintain this performance or seek to continue to improve it?
I think the slow is too broad. Is too much going on in there. I would separate this out into two.
Okay. Yeah, so just to kind of tell you a little bit about what we do. So again, here I've shared the desired level of performance with you. I didn't really share the student learning outcome, but it did have something about installing, configuring, and upgrading, personal computers. So what we try to do here at Piedmont is we try to ask our faculty to assess their student learning outcome through multiple measures. So we ask for at least 2 assessment measures. It can be one direct measure and one indirect measure. So one thing they could have done here is just to ask to survey the students on how difficult that was, or how many attempts they had to make before they were successful in upgrading that operating system. They could have done that. They chose 2 exercises, a quiz and then a Chapter 2 assignment that was actually a demonstration of their ability to upgrade that computer operating system. A lot of words here though, you're right. But they did do what we had asked them, which was to assess that student learning outcome through multiple measures. So one is kind of abstract or it's a quiz, and the other is a demonstration, which usually those 2 types of measures work well for students, who attend who are enrolled in an applied program, because they often will do better on the demonstration piece than they will do on the quiz, which is exactly what we see here. 98% were successful with the demonstration versus 81% with the more theoretical or, the quiz. So I'm sure you see results like that too. So having said that, does anybody have an improvement action now? Nothing wrong with the one that was mentioned, but what else might they want to do? Demonstration, the students are doing well. And they did meet their goal of 80%, but are you ever just happy, to have 20% of your students not be successful doing something? What might they do to increase student success on quizzes?
I think one of the things that would help is if they had a younger student to help older students, because I have a lot of problems a lot of times with my machine tool students, that if a older student comes in, they don't know a whole lot about computers, and the younger students actually help them because I guess they're more savvy. They're not afraid to just jump in and push a button where the older ones are.
That's right. The older ones oftentimes will feel like they're going to break software or break the computer or something, and but not those younger students. They'll come in and just start, trying things, and that's great. So yeah, that's a wonderful idea, is to pair the two together. Good. Any other ideas for this instructor or this department on how to improve their quiz performance?
I would also look at how the questions are actually structured. Technically, students logically think a little different. So it may be the wording of the questions themselves. So I may look at that.
Great, great. Have any of you ever used a test generator? So when you use a test generator over and over and over, what tends to happen to the questions that get generated? I don't know about you, but in math, the numbers get more complicated, and they really don't make sense. Who cares if a student can find a common denominator for 127? But I want to know that they can find common denominators for fractions with eighths and sixteenths and 32nds and 64ths and fourths and, halves and those kinds of things. So sometimes if you're using a test generator, the quiz has just become too complex. Either the numbers in the problems that that it's generating are just too complicated. So yeah, they actually could, if they're using a test generator here, they might want to review the test generator, reset it, or at least look at the questions before they, include them on the test. So yeah, good points. All right.
Donna, before you leave that one thing I would like to point out, because one of the things I see very often in our responses is notice here that they're telling how many students participated and how many students met the goal. And you can say that, 100% of the students met this, or 80%, and then if you only had like 5 students. So it's very important to indicate the number of students who participated, so that you're giving the full picture of your situation, your performance, and the scope of what you plan to do.
That's so true, Donna. Especially if you're really acing it. And I was talking to another instructor this morning. Building construction technology. We have a new instructor in building construction technology, and he's amazing. He's just amazing. And he was getting some outstanding results, and from students that, didn't start under his leadership. So I started talking to him and, about those, percentages that he was achieving, and, come to find out it was small classes, fewer than 10 students in the class, and that's fine. We're glad we held on to those. But he was able to spend a little more time, ask them where they felt like they were weak or lacking in their ability to, complete what it was he was asking them to do. And he stopped, he reviewed it, what they felt like they were weak on, gave them opportunities to do additional practice. And then by the time he took the assessment measure, they had mastered the material. but it was important, I felt like, to know how many students were in there, so that, you know, it didn't look like that he had just gymmed some numbers, you know, and just said, okay, 100% did this. Well, yeah, they really did. And here's the D2L data, you know, that shows that from the class. So sometimes even in loading your grade book and you know, redacting the students as evidence is good too. So here's one more, and I think this is my last one. This time we're in a process control class. We're back to fall of 20, and I did change some of these numbers around a little bit for the purposes of this activity today. But we're in a introduction to process control, and this time they're doing a process control loop lab exercise, and we wanted 80% of them to get that exercise correct on their first attempt. And then by the second attempt, we want that success to improve to 90% of the students. So I like these ideas. You know, at first you don't succeed, try again. So here are the results. On the first attempt, it was 6 students. Here's your 4 out of 6, Donna. 67% of the students in EEM 162 earned a passing score. 70% or higher is how they define that, on the process control loop fluid flow lab exercise. And then the 2 that didn't get it right on the first attempt, they were able to complete it on the second attempt. So by the second attempt, all the students were successful. So what do you think we need to do with, and especially, I mean, 4 out of 6, but what if it had been 40 out of 60 with that 67%? You know, what could this instructor or this program faculty do to increase their success here, or to improve their success, or to improve student learning on this activity?
I'll jump into this one unless George wants to. George and I teach process control instrumentation. So one thing that could be done to improve results would be, instead of maybe presenting a large lab that included a lot of elements, help students sort of step up to that by breaking it in multiple elements so that they have practice on each part of it and then put it all together at the end.
I love that idea. I love that idea. That's great. Isn't that how we all learn to do things? So yeah, wonderful. Good, good. George, do you want to add anything?
Yes. What we do, or a lot of times, is we introduce this exercise, and we would do several of them, and then at the end I try to give the students what I call a basic skills assessment, which that allows them, well, right now because of COVID we can't work as a team, but what we used to do is work as a team, and then when we would get to the end of the lab where they felt comfortable, we would go ahead and give them a skills assessment where they would actually complete it by themselves. And that normally worked good because it would give them some practice, and then it would demonstrate at the end exactly that how much they knew about the flow lab. So it works out pretty good.
Yeah, it really does. So that idea of doing something as a team before you assess them as an individual, I think that's a great improvement action. So thank you for those. And I'm about out of time here, and I don't want to keep your time, but I did want to share with you some additional resources. So I don't know if you're familiar with NIOLA. Their website is at niola.org. It's learningoutcomesassessment.org. And they have a lot of research papers and just different tools there. But if you want to, you know, if you get feel like you're getting a little stale with your assessment, maybe you want to go to that website. And this is just one example using assessment results, promising practices of institutions that do it well. And also, I don't know if you realize it or not, but on the SAC-COC website, there's some institutional effectiveness training. You don't have to be the SAC-COC liaison for Orangeburg Technical College. to go through that training. So you might want to, you know, as a department head or academic program director, you may want to go through that training just to become more familiar with what an evaluator might look for when they're completing a review of your decennial review or your 5th year interim report. So anybody can do that. And then another great place that, you know, you may not even have thought about for ideas on assessment is Pinterest. Some great little ideas, just typing in assessment and searching, just like you would for a recipe or a decoration. And then finally, there are always good books out there. So 10 years ago, Piedmont wasn't in such a good place. Well, maybe 12 years now. And so at that time, our liaison was Dr. Johnson, who went on to become chief of staff there at SAC-COC. And he recommended that we look at a couple of books. One was this Assessment Clear and Simple. And some other books that he suggested were things by Linda Susky. So look for these folks, look for pre-conferences at the annual meeting if you have an opportunity to go. This year's annual meeting is virtual, so it's much cheaper and maybe more people from your institution can participate. But they always have great pre-conference sessions and concurrent sessions during the conference that are related to assessment. So that is all I have. Let's see if I can stop the share and take any final questions that you might have for me today.
Donna, before you take questions, I would like to just point out one thing that you saw in her examples is the consistency of the presentation of data. And that would be one of the things that we see, and I'm guilty of as well, is particularly when you start dealing with the summary of years and you're talking about telling your story across a 3-year period, et cetera. You may have been dealing with the presentation of data all along in percentages, and then suddenly you start giving a final result in averages. And with you have to be very careful in the presentation of your final story that you don't give mixed messages with your data.
That's right. That's right. So it's a good idea sometimes just to ask someone else in the department or the program to read over what you've written and to make sure that it's, you know, clear, concise, you know, accurate. It's always a good idea to have someone pretend they're from the outside and reading and to let them know that you really do want their feedback about those things so that it makes the report better for the evaluator. Then you've got a nice document too to present to your program advisory committee. A really nice document.
Are you ready for questions?
Sure.
One of the things I was interested in, Donna, you talked about telling your story, is how specific do we get? How much detail, like the type of students that we had that particular semester? These were early college students. They were in an online class during COVID. I guess I'm just curious how specific is good in order to evaluate why you were at that point.
Yeah, that's a good question, and thank you for taking it easy on me. So you want to talk about the types of students. What I encourage our folks to do here at the college is to talk about day, evening, part-time, full-time, dual enrollment. You know, if you collect if you have age data in your system that's easy to retrieve, you know, you might talk about this class was primarily 17 to 25-year-olds, whereas the night class was 35 to 48-year-olds. I think those things are of interest to an evaluator, and it shows your depth of understanding and analysis in order to come up with then those improvement actions that you want to implement.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense.
Okay.
And one additional thing there, Wendy, is that's one of the reasons we encourage you and we disaggregate our data by the different types of settings, like the early college versus online versus face-to-face, etc.
Yes.
So we automatically do that. So anything that you can do to add to that discussion is certainly very valuable.
Yes, yes. So I was looking at your templates, and Leah has left no stone unturned. So I think if you filled out those templates and then you narrate your story from that, you should be in great shape.
All right, thank you.
Sure. Other questions?
They are letting you off easy, Donna.
Yeah, they are. They are.
I have a question.
It's Thursday afternoon.
I have a question.
Great, Anthony.
How big of a role should basic demographics play in how I teach public speaking, and sometimes there are demographic things that affect how people process that. And sometimes the demographics is beyond age. Demographics is beyond age or race. Sometimes it's the environmental factors, where I have some students who are kind of isolated way out in places that I don't even know the name of. Mm-hmm. So to them, speaking to people, one of the first things they have to do within the first couple of weeks is stand in front of everybody and talk. So how much should I look at demographics as a basis for how I assess that?
Yeah, so I think you could approach it from that standpoint, and you would be fine. Do you have to? Maybe not. You could say things that, if you gave if you did a get to know you, and you discovered that most of your students indicated they had never spoken in front of the public or in front of an audience. I think it would be great to say that, on our getting to know you activity, this was observed. And so student performance reflected that challenge. And here's what we're going to do about it. But the important thing there is, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to help those students to become comfortable in front of an audience and speaking in public? And, one is practice, but the other is, other ways to encourage them and provide positive feedback.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Anything else before I leave you today? I know I'm into your time.
I would like to add one more thing, and Anthony is one who did a really good job on his, I still remember some of your presentation and some of your storytelling on the last one, Anthony. But all of us have a lot more things that we can deal with now. Just the technology that we're able to bring into our classrooms, and that so many of you all have had to deal with just in implementing simulations. And Zenny and Babs, I think about what all you all did with field experiences this time, where they had to get videos because they couldn't go into schools in early childhood. The kinds of things that you all have brought to the table, you've got a lot of storytelling to do. And if ever there was a year that you could write a jam up assessment of where you've been and the improvements you've made, this is certainly it. So don't underestimate yourself. Don't play down what you've done and what you have all just been through.
It is amazing, isn't it? I mean, it is. Somewhere along the way, we must all take time to celebrate that. So, so let me just conclude by saying, Leah, Donna, I'll join you in a show anytime. So, just let me know when what's next on the agenda. And you guys are in great hands with the two of them. And it was a pleasure to visit with you this afternoon. I wish you well as you continue your assessment journey. Have a great afternoon.
Donna, before you go, if you would make me the host again, just
All right.
click more by my name.
Oh, let's see. All right, Leah, what have I got to do here?
Click on participants. So you get the long list of names.
Okay.
and then you can, if you don't see me right there, you can click
Just
in
more?
find and just type my
Okay.
name.
And make host.
Yeah.
All right. Yes, I do.
Thank you so, so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fosters. This is Cleve.
Hey, Cleve. Great to see you.
I'll see you soon.
Take care.
Alrighty, so as we move on to the breakouts, I will say that I first learned of this whole idea of an assessment day or an assessment event at a conference that I went to last summer. And so my original plan was for all of us to be in the cafeteria at different tables with snacks, and so we could all get into groups and face-to-face review what we had just submitted. And that way you could go from table to table. It would be easy for the deans and directors to sort of move around the room. Fingers crossed that the next time we do this, we can have a little bit more of that sort of environment. But the Zoom breakout rooms is going to help us a little bit. So what I've done is broken you out into those groups based upon either your program or your division. If you, by chance, were not pre-assigned, you'll sort of still hang around here in the main room, and then I'll put you into a room. But for right now, I will go ahead and make that